Good evening, hello and welcome to The World at 8. Today is Friday the 10th of October 2014. We're having today a special edition of World at 8. We've managed to trap Nick Griffin, former MEP, for a chat in which he talks about UKIP, the media and the future of nationalism.
Hello Nick, how are you doing?
I'm finding it
Right, let's start this little chat going. And obviously we're going to centre on UKIP for our little discussion today. So my first query is, what do you think of the results that UKIP achieved in the Clacton and Middleton by-elections?
Really quite remarkable results. Everyone was expecting them to win in Clacton, that was a done deal. Mm-hmm. But if you look at the figures, on a 51% turnout, which is a pretty decent turnout for a parliamentary by-election, UKIP got 21,000, and the Tories in second place got 8,700. So it's just an absolutely swamping majority. It's an astounding result. On the other hand, Hayward and Middleton, I think, is probably even more significant, because that was a rock-solid, safe Labour seat.
Yeah.
And UKIP were only about 600 votes behind, with the Labour Party on 11,633, just over 11,000, the Tories down to under 3,500, and the Lib Dems at less than 1,500. 36% turnout indicates, I would say, that the only reason that Labour hung on to that was that they have, as we know, especially in these working class areas, the north in particular, they a very, very big postal vote, and on a 36% turnout, probably the majority of voters would have been on the postal vote register.
Yeah.
So quite simply, the very large number of people who, had they voted, would probably have voted UKIP, but didn't vote. That's what made the difference. So UKIP must have walked that on the day yesterday, and were only held out for the postal votes. So it's a quite remarkable result, pressing both the traditional governing parties absolutely to the wire and wiping out the Lib Dems.
Yes, exactly. And apparently Farage views the result in Middleton as better for the party than the result in Clacton, the overall sweeping result in Clacton.
I didn't know that, but that's what I said a couple of minutes ago. Yeah, so he's quite right. It's an astounding result, really. Is.
And he's very, very proud of it, as he should be. I mean, I don't have any time for the man myself, but you've got to hand it to him. He's certainly got a very good publicity machine going.
It's very effective. It's not least it's called the BBC, and the entire British media, with the exception of the Guardian, which nobody reads, and the Independent, which not many people read.
Exactly. Which actually brings me to my next sort of query from the Master, from you, is the view on the change in the years, and the 4 years from the 2010 elections, when the BNP got 7% and UKIP only got 2.5%. And as you say, this is probably due to the British media, who seem to have taken on the part of being the propaganda machine for UKIP.
Indeed so, yeah. In 2010 in Hayward and Middleton, BNP Pete Greenwood got 3,239 votes, which would be circa 7%.
Yeah.
UKIP got just over 2.5%. And it is all about the media, because when you consider that was fairly typical of what went on over huge swathes of middle and northern England in 2010, the general election, that the BNP beat UKIP. We got more votes than them on. We beat them in more places than they beat us.
Yeah.
And overall, the BNP got a higher percentage. So, and yet the media immediately presented 2010 as a huge BNP as a huge UKIP advance.
Yeah.
BNP disaster. Of course, it actually wasn't anything of the kind.
No, it wasn't.
But it is how the media present it. And as you say, since then they've done even more. It was wall-to-wall, enormous media promotion for UKIP. Because it started primarily with the BBC, and people would think, well, why on earth would the BBC promote UKIP? And all our people really know. But it was partly as a way of blocking the British National Party, and they realised that just attacking the BNP and demonising it wasn't stopping disgruntled voters supporting it. If anything, it was making them support it. But they realised they needed an alternative to hoover the votes away. So UKIP was partly for that reason, and then, again with the BBC, I think they very quickly realised their only chance of Labour winning the next general election was if they managed to use UKIP to split the Conservative vote. So that explains entirely the BBC having Farage on Question Time and any answers, any questions, and comedy programmes and presenting the weather and all sorts.
Well, virtually, yes.
Yeah, no, he did. He did, absolutely, on one time, yes.
I missed that one.
He was on one of the political programmes, and there he was. They gave him a weather forecast.
Oh, God almighty.
A spoof one. So, yeah, I just outrageous stuff. That doesn't account for the rest of the mass media. The BBC, obviously, the Labour Party at broadcast, but all the rest of them, from the Sky, the Sun, the Times, the Telegraph, the Mail, and the rest of them, that's a different matter. And I think there's a different agenda there. And in the end, when you look, there was an interesting story I was reading just the other day coming out of Germany about the extent to which the CIA simply controls the German media. They had journalists and editors left, right and centre working for them, and they promote a US agenda, or the agenda of the US ruling elite. And of course the same is true in Britain as well. And I think that the neocon corporate media, the Murdochs of this world and so on, I think there's a different agenda there. And roughly speaking, until about 2008 or so, the American ruling elite clearly still viewed the EU in the way they had done with the Cold War, which was a useful way of keeping Western Europe away from the Soviet Union, and so they promoted it. The EU was largely created, funded, and assisted to a very large extent by the American intelligence services. And then somewhere around about 2008 it changed, and from then on, in fact, I think it's very, very clear that the people in charge of America have wanted to do everything possible they can to create problems for Europe. It's probably quite simple. Look, they view Germany as a rising economic power which threatens the world dominance of the United States, especially if Germany were to hook up more and more with Russia. That would do so. So for the last few years, everywhere you look, you see American interests and the people in their pockets, such as the Conservative Party and so on, but huge sections of the British mass media too. They're doing everything they can to cause problems for UKIP, for Europe, whether it's setting Europe against Russia, or whether it's backing anti-Euro organisations. Such UKIP in Britain, they started that really big in 2008. At exactly the same time, they started promoting Beppe Grillo and the Five-Star Movement. And of course, Grillo and UKIP are now in alliance in the European Union and giving significant problems, especially as their influence feeds into Germany with the Alternative für Deutschland, which is a UKIP-type party over there. And they're now on about 11% of the poll, and already it's said that their presence makes it impossible, literally impossible, for Angela Merkel and the German establishment to bail out the euro and to finalise what was always the plan, which was a single financial United States of Europe. So quite simply, people like UKIP, it's great to see, in a way, the mass media, taking a decent line on Europe and thereby at least making a possibility that one day British freedom will be recovered from the European Union. I don't think they're doing it for good reasons. They're doing it primarily because the people running the United States of Europe are frightened, the United States of America are frightened of something like a united Europe, and they're trying to break it up. And in the course of doing that, they in their media have promoted UKIP and parties like it all over Europe to an incredible extent.
Right, this obviously backs up the fact that UKIP, of course, stands for pulling out of the EU, or it's supposed to stand for pulling out of the EU. So it seems to be a bit of a sort of a mismatch of propaganda there, doesn't it, in an odd sort of way?
I don't think so. It would have done up to about 2008.
Yeah.
But since then, the people running the United States have wanted Europe smashed up and destroyed.
Mm.
I think you see it in various different ways. The promotion of various separatist movements is all part of the same thing.
Yeah.
In Catalonia and so on. And they don't care really what they use to do it. They want Europe smashed up. So you see them as the most extreme. The neo-Nazis and fascists who were a major part of the Ukraine coup
Yes.
are the most appalling people in many, many ways.
Yeah.
The ruling elites of the United States, the Zionist element there, and so on, should absolutely hate them, but they find them useful and they're promoting them. So they certainly wouldn't have any problem with promoting a party like UKIP, even though obviously there's elements of what UKIP wants, certainly its rank and file, who, yes, they want to leave the EU, but they certainly wouldn't want to be hoovered up sort of as an extra appendage of the United States.
Yeah, and the extra 51st state or something.
51st state, they'd want something like British independence, but the powers that they don't really care about that. What they're interested for now is giving the European Union and Europe as an economic challenger to the United States, a huge headache. And there we are, got parties like UKIP being promoted over the last few years everywhere across Europe. In the most simple terms possible, the internationalists for decades, anytime they looked at something nationalist, simply wanted to destroy it.
Mm.
And over the last few years, they've now decided to harness it, promote it, channel it, and use it.
Yes, because it does seem, I mean, the nationalists per se, the usual thing is for nationalists to get out of the EU. So does it mean that nationalists will have to reverse that opinion?
No, it's all in, because the people in charge now in the big power block of the world, the United States,
Yeah.
they want the European Union smashed up.
Yeah.
So it's going. I actually think it's doomed, because which I wouldn't have thought a few years back.
No.
Doomed because a far greater power than the Europhiles and the Eurocrats is now promoting through the enormous power of the internationalist mass media,
Yeah.
Sky and Fox News and all the rest of them.
Yeah.
They're actively promoting parties all over Europe which will smash up the EU. So I think it's not yet over, but the course of current events is very, very clear indeed. And I think that this sort of artificially promoted grassroots rebellion against the European Union will grow and grow and grow.
Yes, which is, in an odd way, it's sort of it's going the nationalist way, but for the wrong reason.
Yes, indeed. I mean, historically, does that matter in the end? And it's just the same as when in 2004 I was warning about the problems of radical Islam, and in my trial I did the same thing.
Yeah.
At the time, no one else was saying that.
Oh no.
Really and truly.
Yeah.
Whereas now, it's all over the mass media, the newspapers especially,
Yeah.
day after day after day. What, frankly, you could call it genuine Islamophobia.
Yeah.
They really do wind it up every possible way. When you get someone like Anjem Chowdhury, who's a low-level publicity hound, of no import whatsoever,
No.
who genuinely has, or used to have, no support at all amongst most normal British Muslims.
Yeah.
They have various faults, but they didn't support Anjem Chowdhury. I think still most of them don't. But he presented on, the Sun, the Express, or wherever, he presented as if he speaks for a vast section of that community.
Yeah.
People that do that are doing that for their own, frankly, rather wicked reasons. But if it helps wake ordinary Brits up to the fact there's a problem, then that's a damn good thing, isn't it?
It is, and I think the British especially have a habit of actually turning a blind eye to something that's practically in their laps. Relentlessly. I mean, they've done it through the ages, haven't they?
Yes, indeed.
It doesn't happen, it hasn't happened, and it's not going to happen.
Yes, quite so. But now, with this much pressure from the mass media on these issues, they're becoming an issue. And certainly, when you look at UKIP's success yesterday,
Yes.
it's not based on the European Union. Virtually nobody in Hayward and Middleton would vote on the issue of the European Union.
No.
It's based on immigration. The idea that UKIP is the most effective way of making a protest about it, which is perfectly true.
Yes, exactly.
He hopes that UKIP will do something about it, which of course is false.
They're not going to. In fact, I think Farage's latest thing in the papers was he thinks that all immigrants who have HIV should be sent home or not allowed in. Which, coming from a nationalist, if you said that, or another nationalist group said that, they'd be hailed as the coming of the Third Reich, or the Fourth Reich.
Yes, sure.
Because Farage has said it. It's there in the papers. It's publicised.
Yeah, and that kind of clever use of the gap that we used to be the only people to fill will propel UKIP even further up the ladder. Certainly, as far as the next general election, it will be their election.
Yes.
Of course, once they're in coalition, then that's a different matter entirely.
Oh, yes.
Then things will change. Apart from the fact that looking and speaking with nationalists in other countries and so on, I'm now convinced that UKIP is just part of a general trend and part of a general operation, and therefore, once they're in coalition, they disgrace themselves.
Yeah.
The people behind this sort of thing, they'll simply create another one.
Yes.
There's not going to be a huge electoral gap for British nationalists for the foreseeable future, for a very long time. And this is very, very important for people to realise that simply to say, oh yeah, it's great that UKIP actually wiggle out the vote, but it's good that UKIP got a high vote because it's showing that traditional voter loyalties are changing, and in due course we'll pick those votes up.
Yeah.
No, nationalists won't.
No, they won't. They won't at all.
It's going to be there for some time, and when it's gone, if the powers that be start to see genuine nationalists filling the gap that will be created once UKIP are in coalition,
Yeah.
they simply use the trick they now understand very well, and they'll create another one. So
Yes.
the electorally based model worked very well for British nationalism, basically from the year 2000 when we started to pick up,
Yeah.
2002 when we first won, through to 2009, even 2010 if it hadn't been for media lies.
Yeah.
We beat UKIP in 2010. But that road is shut. It's as simple as that. The powers that be now understand what to do. They've created a model and a system. They've realised it took them a long time to wake up to the fact that just demonising us didn't stop angry voters voting for us.
No.
To the contrary. So they found a new way to do it, and the electoral gap basically is shut. So any nationalist party whose leaders try and tell its members, don't worry, we'll soon be back in the elections, what UKIP's done is really great, it'll soon help us, they're lying to people, presumably in order to try and screw some more money out of them. Nationalists have to work out new ways to show people why they should join us. You know, our model for years has been, we do win elections, we're speaking to you, so join us. Well,
Yes, that actually,
on the BNP.
and to interrupt here, because that actually brings me to my fifth and final question.
Oh yeah, right.
And that was, will there be a new model for nationalists in the future, and will it be more pan-European than it has been in the past?
I'll deal with the last bit first. Will it be more pan-European? It either may be or may not be. That's not important in this sense. Is it the model that works?
Right.
I think it needs to be more pan-European in terms of looking at other European movements and exchanging ideas, especially exchanging assistance on things that work. And exchanging analyses. That's very, very valuable. I believe that there'll come a point somewhere in the future where if we're going to come to power or have even just a major influence through some kind of serious either economic collapse or serious social problems, serious ethnic problems, problems with some bunch of Islamic crazes with some hideous bombs or whatever.
Oh God, yes.
It's a thing that we will need to work together. It's very interesting in Ukraine that on the good side, the pro-Russian side, there's actually nationalists in various parts of Europe fighting with them as volunteers right now.
Oh,
that kind of thing inevitably is going to grow.
Yeah.
In terms of Britain and what matters, it doesn't really matter whether it's more European or less European. The thing is, does it have vision and does it look at the situation, analyse the situation, and say banging one's head against the brick wall constantly is not a good idea.
It hurts.
It comes to hurt. Let's find something better to do. And the thing that's going to mark out the successful nationalist resistance in the future in Britain, and in fact all over, particularly Western Europe, where we've got the UKIP type things, is whether we adapt to that. You adapt or die. So simply, if you're going to go up against the UKIP in elections, you're going to get slaughtered, and people are going to become demoralised, and the party will be over.
Yeah.
If, on the other hand, you look at it a totally different way, this is the way I look at it, and I think we've all got to, that in order to make UKIP effective, either as a bloc for the British National Party or as a stick with which to beat the European Union,
Yeah.
then that's the corporate mass media have had to build the thing up to such an extent that it's now actually radicalising, at a very simple level, radicalising and involving huge numbers of people who were not remotely interested in politics or alternative politics before,
Exactly.
and would have been attracted to something which was self-evidently tougher and more controversial, such as a genuine nationalist party.
Mm.
So we can either see UKIP as some monstrous thing that is basically in our way.
Yeah.
I mean, if you do that, you're going to be disappointed and doing nothing for a long time to come.
Yes.
Or you can see it as a bloody great pond in which we need to go fishing. And then, having decided that's what it is, because it's bringing all sorts of fish into a pond quite near us, where they come across ideas rather like ours, and we can go fishing in that. I'll give you one example. During the Withenshaw by-election a few months back,
Oh, yes.
well, the end of last year, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I got talking to a middle-aged couple who were out with UKIP rosettes on, campaigning in the street, and we chatted for a few minutes, and they hadn't been involved in politics before. They'd been involved in UKIP just under a year. They'd learned quite a lot about what to do and so on. They were campaigning quite effectively, and they'd learned that from UKIP. But through being associated with UKIP and thinking and becoming political, they'd also got on hunting on their own on the internet. And the husband said, after a few minutes chat, he said, of course, there's far more to this than just Europe. Have you heard about the Bilderberg Group? Yes, I've heard about the Bilderberg Group. They've been hanging on about that since 1975,
I
I
was going
think.
to say, yeah.
And then he said, and then of course, you probably haven't heard of the Frankfurt School. Well, yes, I have.
Yeah.
There's the thing, you see, that those people, had UKIP not been boosted in this way, they would never have got involved in politics and then started looking.
Yeah.
And they were already on a slope. It's described by the liberal elite when they don't like these things as an escalator of radicalisation.
Oh, lovely.
Once you're on the first step, it just keeps on rolling and you go up further and further. So huge numbers of people now being attracted to UKIP who can be taken on from that and onto a genuine nationalism in terms of nationalist ideas and our understanding of what goes on in the world and what really makes things tick and what the problems really are.
Yeah.
And they sooner or later become very indigestible to UKIP and be thrown out and need a home, or there'll be so many of them that they'll change UKIP. And this thing that the liberal elite create for their own purposes, may run away from them.
They'll be hoisted their own petard, probably.
Indeed, that we can't tell. But all I can say is that if we keep on just banging our head against the electoral brick wall, we'll do nothing to further that process.
No.
Whereas if we approach it more intelligently and say, right, we're going to engage consciously and deliberately and with resources, with time and effort, in a process of ideological, not individual, but ideological infiltration into it, I believe that will bear fruit in future. And then there's many other ways, which we probably will have to come back to another day.
Yeah.
There's many other ways in which a radical nationalist movement in Britain right now can do things far more intelligently than the British National Party was for the last couple of years.
Exactly.
I've been trying to do some of these things remotely, in fact, for the last couple of years, and all I've had is blocking, interference, negativity, and not enough resources and so on.
Exactly.
The clique now running the BNP appear to be utterly fixated on elections. Now, there is a place for elections. We can't, and I won't give them up entirely, but there's also a time and a place.
Yes.
And the time really isn't now. We need to keep our hand in by doing just enough in just enough places to train people so we can fight the elections better.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you come back, even without UKIP, you come back against that Labour postal vote monster.
Oh, yeah.
So we mustn't lose sight of the fact that elections have a role, but they only have part of a role of building a nationalist movement that we need for the future. And there's all sorts of other things, many of them a great deal of fun, actually, far more fun than electioneering. There's so much that we can do, and that's my mission over the next few weeks and couple of months, is to set these things out, to win people over to them, the fact that these are what we should do, and to build the organisation which will do them.
Yes, and I'm sure you're going to be very, very successful, Nick, because in a way, UKIP have taken an awful lot of our nationalist concerns, and in the last few years they've opened them to the public. As you say, the public have adopted them. So in a way, the nationalist movement has been very, very successful in this country, considering the media blackout it had, because these people are now centred on immigration, anti-EU, and all the things, and Muslim grooming, all the things that we actually used to pontificate on.
Yes, indeed. I even heard Paul Nuttall from UKIP on television late last night having a go at a Labour MP in Hayward and Middleton, and one of his barbs at Labour was, because Labour was saying, well, you'd abolish the NHS and all the rest of it. He'd say, yeah, but you're the party of PFI. Labour's the party of PFI. Which, of course, is absolutely true. So all this, it's on a number of different issues, as you say. Rhetoric, ideas which were ours,
yes,
and ghettoised with us.
Well, they were.
While they were ghettoised with us, there was a gap for us in those ideas. Our ideas are now completely out of the ghetto. They're completely mainstream with UKIP and the media that promote them.
They've done us a favour.
And that's actually a huge step forward, in historical terms. Our ideas are now there up and being promoted themselves. I say they've happily rubbed the lamp and they've let the genie out. That's good, but it's only any good if we analyse, well, what does that mean then for us, and where can we go from here?
Yes.
And we have to work at that very, very hard. But as long as we do so, I think there's enormous potential for genuine nationalism now to grow on the back of the fact that they've let our ideas out into the mainstream.
Yes, and certainly it's better to do it solidly, underground, with the right people, approaching, as you say, the right concerns with the right attitude.
Yes.
And I think it's going to be a slow process, but I think it might be a more thorough process than just quite suddenly coming up with I've got a new party, here it is, and everyone runs around like mad things for a few weeks and then the whole lot dies.
Yeah, well, most definitely, we do not need, I'm not going to create a new party.
No.
There's a plethora of little parties out there, all falling over themselves to convince the same handful of supporters that that they're going to be different, just because they talk about it.
Yeah.
Now, UKIP are talking about being different, and some people have bought into it.
Yeah.
You look at Hayward and Middleton results, there were still 2/3 of the public, for all that fuss and hype, couldn't be bothered to vote.
No, which is a bad sign, really.
Yeah, and the reason for that is that they consider that all politicians are the same, which, of course, fundamentally they are. And the only way around that is not ever glottier and fancier leaflets saying we're different, or anything else like that. It's actual real grassroots work. And one reason, just to finish off here, there's another reason I believe in which the power elite of the Western world wants parties like UKIP or Alternative for Deutschland or whoever they are, never got to be it, why they want them there. Because we're entering the end phase of this globalisation looting of our countries. And they've looted everything they can without the public really objecting, and now they're going to loot the things which will really upset people, such as social housing and such as the health services.
Yes, and of course the land itself.
And the land itself. Now, that's going to create a reaction, and if that reaction is a genuine nationalist one, it will be very dangerous.
Yeah.
So if your opposition party is a UKIP, which is a free market party par excellence, the Thatcherite party even more so than the Conservative Party.
Yes.
And while they'll make noises which will allow the masses to think that, perhaps not everyone's this way, nothing will be done. So the looting will go on without hesitation and will be even worse.
Yeah.
The important factor that produces for us isn't just that we can complain about it, but why should the public listen to us? Is the fact that they are going to tear the welfare state safety net to pieces.
Mm-hmm.
This then puts us in the position where we have to learn from our enemies and look at other people. The thing that radical Muslims all over the world use more than anything else, which makes them the spokesman of their people, which makes people who don't actually go along with their very, very hardline view of the world, nevertheless ordinary people in places like Egypt support them.
Yes.
They're the ones who in a state, a third world state where there is no welfare service system, they're the ones who look after people. They're the ones that do charity work. They're the ones that run food kitchens and so on. And that is the gap that's going to open up for nationalists. So, things such as food banks, things such as cooking meals together, and even if you can't do it enough to actually help everybody, it's doing it enough to show people that you understand the need and that you're different. You're not in the end selling or promoting a solution. You're promoting hope. That's what we're in the market of. It's giving people hope. And as this gap opens up, where there's more and more need for people to work together, communities to work together, and so on, then that's where we need to be. I'll finish off with one very concrete example, so it shows it's not waffle.
Yeah.
I heard just the other day, speaking to someone, they're involved in quite a middle-class church, actually, up in middle-class part of Chester.
Mm-hmm.
And they said, we're cooking tonight. I thought, is this sort of cooking is a communal type thing? They said it's through the church. No. They said, one of our church members, a young couple, they had a baby a few days ago.
Oh.
And so what the church does is we simply arrange it that someone comes home from having a baby, and for the first week, a different couple from the church go into the house and they take everything with them and they cook them a meal.
Oh, marvellous.
So the wife doesn't have to worry for 7 days. Everything's done, and there's that support and all the rest of it.
It's a very good idea, actually.
Absolutely fantastic. And there you've got nationalists all banging on about how we need more kids. Most of them, incidentally,
Don't have them.
selfish middle-aged men who could have had kids and have stayed single all their lives because they want to get on and enjoy themselves and go jetting around the world or whatever. They can't bother to settle down and do what they should do, and that's have children.
Yeah.
Actually, bang on about it's all about demographics and we need more children and all the rest of it. Then what do we actually do about it? And there's a church just there, and it's only a symbolic thing, but just for seven evenings, a couple who've had a baby, they don't have to worry about their food, and everyone understands the importance that they collectively attribute to their community, not just talking about it, but actually doing something about it.
Yeah.
That, just as one example, if people think they'd rather go up against UKIP in elections in 2015, and that's going to be more constructive than encouraging something like that, well then they're very welcome to go and waste their time. But
we're not.
Exactly, we're not going to. There's so much more that we can do to make a real difference and build a movement which, when the time is right, can fill the gaps there will be. So much that can be done. I actually think it's really exciting.
I think it is, and as the Chinese say, may you live in exciting times.
It is. We do.
We do. Thank you very much, Nick. That's been very helpful. I'm sure it's set an awful lot of people's minds at rest. That's the future.
I'd quite much like to hear if people would email in to World at 8 with just very simple reactions to that and so on.
Yes, it would certainly.
Very grateful to people. Thank you very much, all.
That's lovely. Thanks very much indeed, Nick.
Thank you. Cheerio.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Enjoy the weekend.
Thank you very much, Nick. Now, for comments, which we would like very much, please address your emails to this. It is comments@radiobritainonline.info. You can post your comments, they will be read and they will be looked at. Thank you very much, and you've been listening to The World at 8. I and all the staff at Radio Britain and World at 8 wish you all a very happy and a very safe weekend. We will be with you Monday with the normal news night.